The young cadets at Westbridge only saw in Dusty an old janitor. They mocked him, never suspecting his true identity. But a surprising event shook them to their core, revealing that greatness often hides in the most unassuming of people. Join us as we uncover the moving story of respect and the silent heroes among us. Hello everyone, now we step into a place where pride wears boots and ambition echoes down marble halls. Imagine the cold silence of an elite military academy in the early morning, where uniforms are crisp, shoes are polished, and everything must shine. Everything, that is, except for the man pushing the old cleaning cart, his uniform a dull gray that no one salutes. You hear the creak of mop wheels on the tile. Dusty Kale moves through the corridor like he's part of the architecture. His back curves slightly, not from weakness, but from years that bowed him under burdens no one here knows. His face, lined and leathered, carries the kind of history that makes statues seem young, and you probably won't survive this place either, not with the kind of judgment it passes on those who don't look the part. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your city and local time in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. Now, relax, and let's get into today's story. Westbridge Military Academy doesn't wake up, it launches. Doors slam open, cadets bark commands at each other like the air is a proving ground, and discipline is currency. Into this marching beat shuffles Dusty. His mop handle thumps once with each step, rhythmic and unnoticed, until, of course, someone makes him the target. Rex Hale, third-year cadet, top of his unit, son of a colonel, sees Dusty the way others see a bench or a wall. Functional, unimportant, forgettable. And like many who confuse privilege with character, Rex enjoys his audience. As Dusty passes, Rex smirks, leans to his squad mates, and lets out a mock cough, relic approaching. His friends chuckle. One mutters something about museum exhibits needing a broom. Cadet Anya Sharma, a first year with sharp eyes and a conscience still intact, hears it all. She doesn't laugh. She doesn't speak either. Not yet. Dusty, as always, says nothing, but if you watched closely, you'd see it. The tiniest pause in his movement. The subtle clench of his jaw. And when his eyes drift to the wall of honor, a stretch of portraits depicting men and women draped in medals, you'd catch a flicker of something heavier than sadness. Recognition. Memory. Grief. One photo, black and white, aged around the edges, catches his attention every morning. He lingers a breath longer in front of it, like someone replaying an old song they once danced to in blood and mud. No one around him notices. Or cares, the world rushes by. Dusty cleans boot prints off tiles he once walked in full command of. He polishes floors that shook under helicopters and gunfire in another life. But here, in Westbridge, he's just the man with the mop. Outside, cadets bark at one another to tighten their belts, straighten their caps. Inside, Dusty quietly replaces a flickering light bulb in the mess hall before sunrise, but silence holds secrets. You wouldn't know it from his quiet routine, but Dusty Kale once commanded soldiers who would have followed him into fire. He once stood on the edge of enemy territory, balancing the weight of 30 lives in his chest and deciding who would live to see another day. Now he straightens chairs. It's easy to ignore the janitor. People pass him by like fog in a hallway. You probably have, too. At the coffee shop. At the gas station. In your own school. But some of the loudest lives ever lived go unnoticed because we've stopped looking where dignity hides. One morning, Dusty finds a crushed protein bar wrapper ground into the floor near the lockers. He kneels, not like a servant, but like someone accustomed to burden, and picks it up with careful precision. That's when Anya walks by again. She pauses this time, long enough for their eyes to meet. Dusty nods, polite. But his eyes hold storms. You can tell a lot about someone by how they look at a mess, whether they step around it, or kneel down to fix it, even when no one's watching. Anya keeps walking, but something stays with her. That night, lying in her bunk, the laughter from earlier replays in Anya's head. So does Dusty's face, stone calm, with something behind it she can't name. She picks up her phone and searches terms she never thought to: veteran janitor, military academy, heroes in plain sight, forgotten commanders. She starts reading one article after another, stories about retired soldiers quietly working custodial jobs after their service. Some by choice, some by necessity, all by grace. She reads about a man who lost his unit in Afghanistan and never took another command. Now he cleans a courthouse at night. Another, who saved an entire convoy, now sweeps high school gyms. And one photo stops her cold. A younger man, square jaw, keen eyes. The name is redacted in the caption, but Anya swears there's something familiar about him. Outside her window, the lights of the academy burn through the mist. Inside her chest, a quiet question forms. Who is Dusty Kale? It's easy to dismiss someone when they don't demand attention. But power often hides behind silence. And sometimes, the one person no one bothers to salute is the only one who's earned it 1,000 times over. And tomorrow, Westbridge will learn that the quiet man with the mop was once louder than all of them. The mess hall is alive with noise and pride. Forks clatter against trays, cadets laugh too loudly at jokes that aren't that funny, and the air hums with the tension of young men and women trying to outdo each other in posture, volume, and arrogance. Dusty Kale moves quietly between the tables, cart rattling faintly, mop handle upright like a flag at rest. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't make eye contact. He simply does what he always does, cleans the stains of the day, even as new ones are made in front of him. And that's when Rex Hale decides to leave a mark. With a deliberate sidestep, Rex bumps into Dusty's cart hard enough to jolt the cleaning supplies, sending a tray of food sailing through the air and crashing to the floor. Scrambled eggs, coffee, toast, all of it splattered like a bad joke across tile. The laughter is instant. Oops. Rex grins wide, hands raised in faux innocence. Sorry there, old-timer. Didn't see you creeping through the trenches. Laughter roars like gunfire. Cadets slap each other on the back. One even whistles. Dusty doesn't flinch. He bends down and begins to clean the mess with quiet hands. His face is a calm mask, but for those watching closely, it's the eyes. The way they dim, just slightly, as if replaying another mess, far older and far bloodier, that couldn't be cleaned up so easily. Anya Sharma watches it unfold from 2 tables away. Her fork stops halfway to her mouth. She sees the others laughing, familiar faces, peers who once told her leadership was about character, integrity. None of them stop Rex. Not even Lieutenant Colonel Corbin, who walks by, sees the scene, and merely shakes his head before moving on. After lunch, she lingers near the cleaning closet as Dusty returns the mop and supplies. She opens her mouth once, then closes it. He sees her in the mirror mounted on the wall. Their eyes meet for half a breath. You alright? She asks, the words clumsy, unsure if they belong. Dusty just nods. Seen worse. That night, Anya dives deeper. She finds old forums, declassified mission summaries, veteran testimonials. Pieces together stories of a man who disappeared from records after a mission known only by code, Sparrow Dust. A mission that went sideways in the worst way, hostages saved, half the unit lost, commanding officer presumed dead but later seen on base, stripped of insignia. The profile matches the ghost of a man she sees mopping floors. She prints out what she finds and brings it to her bunk, staring at it until the ink blurs in her tired eyes. Could it really be him? The next day, Dusty's routine continues, but Anya watches him differently now. She notices how he always starts cleaning near the eastern stairwell, where the portrait of the unnamed commander hangs on the wall of honor. She sees how he handles the American flag each morning, straightening it before anyone arrives. Not out of duty. Out of reverence. That reverence unsettles her. Because it means something is still alive in him, something deep, something sacred. Rex, meanwhile, continues his performance. A loud joke here, a sneer there. He enjoys being the center of gravity in the Academy's social orbit. But something has shifted. A week later, Anya walks past Dusty in the corridor. This time, She doesn't just nod, she stops. Sir. I mean, Mr. Kale, she stammers. I just wanted to say, I read about Operation Sparrow Dust. He pauses mid-sweep. His eyes meet hers. There's no fear, no anger. Just the faintest trace of a smile, like he's known this moment would come. Dangerous habit, he says. Digging through dust. I had to know. Dusty considers her, mop still in hand, and now that you do. Anya swallows. I think. You've seen things we can't imagine. And I think some people here owe you more than silence. He doesn't answer right away. Then he says, almost softly, sometimes silence is the only way to hear what matters. And then he moves on, sweeping past her like a ghost disappearing into daylight. But she's already heard him. Later that evening, in a leadership seminar, Anya raises a point that's not in the syllabus. She speaks about how respect shouldn't only follow rank, but action. About how leadership isn't about barking orders, but bearing burdens. The other cadets listen. Some scoff. But a few nod. Even Rex, from the back row, shifts in his seat, and while Dusty Kale mops another hallway in another wing, unseen again, something else moves behind the walls. The beginning of change. It's not dramatic. It's not a grand speech or a confrontation. It's a quiet reckoning, because sometimes, a single act of cruelty reveals the depth of someone's dignity. And when that dignity doesn't flinch, not even under laughter, not even under a tray of humiliation, it becomes something more. It becomes undeniable. Rex doesn't apologize. Not yet. But he stops bumping into carts, and Anya? She keeps searching. Not just online, but in her peers, her mentors, herself. Because now she knows what to look for, the eyes that have seen too much. The silence that holds the truth. The hands that clean what no one else sees, and soon, the entire academy will see too. The air inside the Westbridge Assembly Hall holds the weight of legacy. The grand banners hang above like silent witnesses, bearing the names of decorated alumni. Cadets are lined up in crisp formation, backs straight, faces eager. Today is graduation day, the pinnacle of their training, the doorway to their futures. There's a buzz, electric and hushed, as whispers race through the ranks. She's coming. General Evelyn Reed, her name alone commands all. A living legend. The kind of figure cadets read about in textbooks, her exploits discussed in ethics seminars. She once led an international rescue under enemy fire with only 6 operatives and a weather-worn map. Today, she's here to speak to Westbridge's finest. Rex Hale adjusts his collar 3 times. He's expecting his name to be read among the top cadets. He's expecting recognition. Cameras flash. Family members fidget in the audience, waiting for the ceremony to begin. Then, the doors open. She walks in not like thunder, but like a tide. Controlled. Immovable. Her uniform is flawless. Her presence, absolute. General Reed doesn't waste a glance on the rows of young faces craning toward her. She moves steadily, scanning the hall, not for the podium, but for someone else. Dusty Kale stands in a dim corner near the maintenance closet. He's here to sweep up after the ceremony. As always, he's not supposed to be seen, but she sees him. The hush that had settled over the room now deepens into something reverent and unsure. Every step General Reed takes toward him is deliberate, echoing louder than the applause that never quite starts. And then, in full view of the cadets, staff, and senior officers, she stops before him, and raises her hand in a salute. Not a casual nod. Not the kind of polite courtesy reserved for a janitor at a military function. A full, straight-backed, textbook-perfect military salute. The kind only given to someone who has earned it in blood, in valor, in silence. Sir, she says, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade, it is an honor to finally meet you again. Gasps break like glass across the room. Rex Hale's mouth parts, but no sound comes out. Anya Sharma, eyes wide, feels her pulse skip. Dusty doesn't return the salute right away. His face doesn't shift, but his eyes say more than words ever could. They hold recognition, sadness, maybe even guilt. But above all, they hold memory. He nods, almost imperceptibly. And then, slowly, solemnly, he salutes her back. The auditorium feels frozen in that moment. Like time itself has paused to reconsider its priorities. When General Reed turns, she addresses the crowd with a gravity even the most hardened instructors respect. "Cadets," she begins, her voice calm but steel-laced, "you may think you understand service, sacrifice, leadership. But today, you've walked past someone who embodies all of that without ever asking for recognition." Commander Silas Cale. Gasps ripple again, this time accompanied by turning heads. All eyes swing back to Dusty. Reed continues. 30 years ago, Commander Cale led operations most of you will never read about. He was the one who led a covert rescue mission through hostile territory while half his team was pinned down in a valley with no radio contact and no air support. He was the one who chose to stay behind so his men could escape. He was the one who saved my life. You can hear the breathlessness in the room now. Even the officers are stunned. One colonel blinks rapidly as if trying to match the janitor's worn features to a forgotten photo from an old dossier. She speaks of Operation Sparrow Dust. A mission so buried in red tape and classified files that few knew how close it came to disaster. How Cale had overruled the commander's order, choosing instead to reroute his team through unmapped territory because he knew the intel was wrong. And it was. His decision saved 14 lives. But it cost him his reputation. Someone above needed a scapegoat. I was a junior officer on that mission, Reed says. He carried me on his back through 36 hours of jungle terrain. He fed the wounded before himself. He took a bullet meant for another man and kept walking. And when it was all over, when we were back home, he never once tried to clear his name. He just left. You could hear a pin drop in that hall. Dusty stands still, unmoved. Not from pride, but because this moment, this recognition, isn't something he ever asked for. In fact, it's the last thing he ever wanted. Anya watches Dusty's hands. Steady. Still. But her mind flashes back to those same hands gripping a mop, lifting spilled coffee, cleaning boot prints. And now she sees what they really were. Hands that once held the lives of soldiers. Quietly. Without complaint, Rex looks like he's seen a ghost. His shoulders aren't squared anymore. His face, pale. The cadets are no longer thinking about ranks or medals. They're thinking about what it means to wear the uniform. And what it means when someone wears none but still walks like they carry a battalion in their chest. Reed finishes with a command, not to Cale, but to them. Let this be the last day you fail to see the heart behind a humble man. Let this be the moment you remember for the rest of your lives, that greatness often walks quietly, and honor doesn't wear labels. She doesn't need applause. She doesn't ask for it, she simply steps back, her gaze returning to Dusty for a breath longer. And then the graduation resumes. But nothing feels the same, not the air. Not the people. Not the silence. Silence doesn't linger in places like Westbridge, not usually. But in the moments following General Reed's speech, it fills every hallway, every common room, every breath. Cadets murmur in hushed disbelief. Instructors double-check archives. And those who mocked Dusty Cale begin to remember every careless word they tossed his way like cigarette butts on pavement. In the faculty lounge, Lieutenant Colonel Corbin stares at a grainy old photograph that someone pinned to the bulletin board. Cale, back straight, flanked by soldiers in camouflage, mud on their faces, eyes haunted. He knew the name once. Knew the reputation. But he hadn't made the connection. Maybe didn't want to, in the dorms. Anya Sharma becomes a quiet center of gravity. Cadets who once rolled their eyes when she spoke about dignity now approach with tentative curiosity. She shares what she found, reports, testimonials, scraps of truth. None of it paints Cale as invincible. Just real. Human. Extraordinary in his silence. And in the eye of this storm stands Dusty, still sweeping the halls. Still in his gray uniform. But now every cadet who passes him looks twice. Some nod. Some look away, ashamed. It takes less than a day for the commandant to summon him. You're not obligated to accept the commendation, Commander, she says. But the board is unanimous. We'd like to restore your name to the official records. And add your portrait to the Hall of Honor. Dusty's reply is simple, no need for that. But the cadets, let them earn their own honors, he says. They don't need mine. The commandant stares at him, both awed and unsettled. Because what kind of man walks away from redemption when it's handed to him? Later that week, in a packed auditorium, General Reed gives a guest lecture. But instead of strategic tactics or military protocol, she speaks about conscience. About the moment in a jungle where she had to decide whether to save her commanding officer or flee to safety, and how Kale made that decision for her by whispering one word through clenched teeth, go. The lesson isn't lost on the cadets. She ends her talk with a quote, real strength is not in who you command, but in who you carry. The applause is thunderous. Afterward, she finds Dusty outside, repairing a broken bench near the parade field. You sure you don't want to say anything to them? She asks. He shakes his head. They'll hear more if I stay quiet. She laughs softly. You haven't changed a bit. His eyes don't leave the bench. You have. She nods. I had to. He looks up, finally, the wind playing with what little silver remains in his hair. So did I. That night, something extraordinary happens. Anya prints Dusty's story, concise, factual, but deeply human, and tapes it beside the Wall of Honor. She doesn't add his photo. She doesn't sign her name. Just the facts. The next morning, cadets are gathered around it, reading in silence. No one laughs. Rex Hale appears in the crowd. He doesn't shove through. He waits. Then, when the others disperse, he stays. He stares at the paper a long time. Then he walks the halls until he finds Dusty Kale, mopping near the west wing. Sir, he says, voice thick. Dusty glances up. I was wrong, Rex continues. I acted like a leader before I learned how to be one. I disrespected someone I didn't understand. And I'm sorry. Dusty studies him. Not with judgment. Not with pride. Just with clarity. You're still learning, Dusty says. Yes, sir, Rex replies. Then don't waste the lesson. Rex stands straighter. I won't. They nod to each other. No handshakes, no dramatic music. Just acknowledgement. And as Rex walks away, Dusty returns to his work. But his gait is a touch lighter. The silence that follows him is no longer cold. It's reverent. That afternoon, during drills, something different happens. A lieutenant calls for attention, and instead of ignoring the maintenance cart rolling down the corridor, the cadets part without command. They make space for Dusty. They stand taller as he passes, and when he turns the corner, they remain still. Anya notices it. She doesn't say anything, just smiles. That evening, Dusty walks past the Wall of Honor. He stops in front of the anonymous commander's photograph, the one he's lingered near for years. He tilts his head slightly, as if greeting an old friend. A shadow moves behind him. It's General Reed. She steps beside him and rests a hand on the frame. We'll change the nameplate soon. Leave it, he says. Why? He looks at her. There's no bitterness, just clarity, because it doesn't matter if they know my name. It matters that they know what it means. And then he walks on, back to his cart. Back to his quiet corner of the world. But now, that corner shines just a little brighter, because sometimes the greatest truths are revealed not in explosions or speeches, but in silence, in humility, in a man who sweeps the hallway not because he must, but because someone needs to. The days that follow are quieter, not in sound, but in spirit. The loud pride that once thundered through Westbridge's corridors now gives way to something steadier, something deeper. Respect, not just for rank, but for meaning, for history, for the untold. Dusty continues his routines, mopping the south wing, checking supply closets, fixing a flickering light in the faculty lounge. But now, cadets greet him. Morning, sir, some say, awkward but sincere. A few even help lift heavy bins without being asked. They've stopped seeing a janitor. They see a man. A mirror of what they might become, not by climbing ranks, but by living honorably. One morning, as the sun filters through the east windows, Anya Sharma finds Dusty in the garden behind the chapel. He's kneeling, trimming wild vines from a neglected corner. She steps lightly, hesitant. "Sir?" she asks. He glances up, his expression patient. "I've been thinking." She begins, "Maybe we could have a lecture series about veterans who disappeared from the spotlight, whose stories were lost." Dusty wipes his hands on a rag. "You want a history class?" "No," she says. "I want them to remember the people behind the uniforms, the quiet ones. Like you." Dusty sits back on his heels. He doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he looks toward the horizon, where the academy's flag stirs in the morning breeze. "You don't need my story," he says. "You need to write your own. But if you do this, for them, not for me, then maybe it's worth something." She smiles. "Then I'll do it for them." Later that month, the first session of the Silent Few takes place. Anya presents a story from 1978, an unheralded medic who saved 12 lives in a collapsed bunker and then retired to teach biology in Idaho. The room is full. Cadets who once skipped lectures now sit forward, pens in hand, listening as if their own fates depend on it. And Dusty? He listens too, from the back row. Head low, hat in hand. The next week, Anya reads a declassified letter from Operation Sparrow Dust, written by a young officer to her family. Signed, Evelyn. These stories ripple through Westbridge like a new wind. Cadets begin to ask different questions in their ethics classes. Not about tactics or politics, but about right and wrong when no one's watching. About honor when there's no medal. About legacy when your name might never be known. Rex Hale changes, too. He leads with less bravado and more heart. He volunteers on weekends. He starts a peer mentorship group for struggling cadets. One afternoon, he catches Dusty in the mess hall and offers him a seat at his table. Dusty declines, but he nods. That nod says more than any lecture. The seasons change. The Hall of Honor receives a quiet addition, not a new portrait, but a small, brass plaque beneath the unnamed commander's photo, the ones who lead without being seen. Dusty's never mentioned by name. But somehow, everyone knows. One winter evening, snow blankets the courtyard in gentle silence. Anya walks past the west wing and sees Dusty standing near the photograph again. He's not sad this time. Just still. She stops beside him. "Do you regret it?" she asks softly. He shakes his head. "I regret the ones I couldn't bring home. But not what I did. Never that." She nods, unsure what to say. Then, for the first time, Dusty asks her a question. "Why did you look me up?" Anya's answer is quiet. "Because someone needed to remember." He smiles, just barely. Then "Don't stop." Spring arrives. The graduation ceremony returns, full circle. But this year, the atmosphere has shifted. There's less noise, more meaning. When General Reed takes the stage again, her words are briefer. You already know the story of Commander Cale. But what matters is not what he did, it's that you choose to do the same, in your own way, wherever you go. Because you will face moments where nobody sees. And that is when you decide who you really are. As General Reed steps down, cadets don't cheer. They rise. And in unison, they salute, not to the stage, but to the far corner of the hall, where a man in a faded gray uniform stands. As he always does, Dusty doesn't return the salute right away, but he does, eventually. Slowly, respectfully, and then he turns, pushing his cart through the double doors, out into the morning light. No music swells. No curtain drops. Just footsteps and the distant call of cadets preparing to march. He passes the wall of honor one last time. The photograph waits there for him, unchanged. But this time, his eyes don't linger in grief. They rest, and move on, now. We slow down, take a breath. You've walked these halls. You've watched arrogance crack, silence speak, and an old man remind the future of what valor truly looks like. Maybe you're still thinking about that moment when the room fell silent, not for a medal, not for a speech, but for a salute. One that had waited years to be returned. Let it sit with you. Let it soak. There are people all around us who bear the weight of stories they never tell. Not because they want to hide, but because they don't need to be seen. Heroes in faded uniforms, legends behind mop handles, mentors with weathered hands and kind eyes who walked beside us without asking for recognition. We all want to matter. But Dusty Kale teaches us that the truest measure of character isn't how many remember your name, it's how you carried yourself when no one was watching. So tonight, wherever you are, maybe you'll see someone different. Maybe you'll pause before judging. Maybe you'll remember this story, and offer respect not because you're told to, but because now you understand. Thanks for walking this road with me. Sleep well, and wherever your journey leads, carry it with heart.